moment he saved you, he's called you to a purpose. You guys got that? He calls you to a purpose. So those of you who are young, who are burdened by what I'm saying now, I want you to be burdened. I want you to be burdened. I want you to be burdened. And I don't want that burden lifted until God does something for you. Until God does something for you. Until he does for you what he did for that young man who was alarmed by all the enemies that had surrounded Elisha. And we'll talk about that next week. Open your eyes and help you see the truth. I said the wisdom of the ministry. Here's the third point of the wisdom of the ministry. Look at over in verse 4. Verse 3 and 4. And one of them said, be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. Do you see that? Is that wisdom? Is that wisdom? And he said what? I will go. You got it? I will go. Look at verse 4. So he went with them when they came to Jordan, and they cut down wood. Listen, I remember what Moses said in Exodus 32:33. Lord, look, if you don't go with us, don't let us leave this place. These men understood that their ministry was only effective if Elisha was in it. And no work, I don't care how humanly devised it is, what kind of motivational techniques you use, all the technology in the world, is useless. It's useless if Christ is not in it. It's useless if Christ's not in it. See, it takes spiritual power to save spiritually dead sinners. We're getting ready to see that. You don't save sinners through techniques. You don't save sinners through music. You don't save sinners through entertainment. You save sinners through power by the preaching of the gospel and by the prayers of the saints. Do you still believe in that? So they were smart enough to ask Brother Elisha to come along. Do you know what Jesus said in Mark chapter 16? He says, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel. He that believeth and is baptized will be saved. He that believeth not will be damned. And lo, I am with you wherever you go. Isn't that what Jesus said? And lo, I am with you wherever you go. I remember reading in Acts chapter 27, that great storm that Paul was in, as the ship by God's providence was driving him to Rome because he had to preach the gospel to Caesar. And that ship was about to be destroyed. And all the people on there, 277 souls, were wondering whether or not they were going to even make it to shore. The storm was horrible. That same night, guess what? The Lord spoke to Paul. And Paul told the people, listen to me now, this night, in the midst of this darkness, in the midst of all of this trouble, all of this crime, all of this suffering, all of this mayhem, all of this mess our nation is in, this night, an angel stood with me. Did you get it? In the midst of the trouble. In the midst of the trouble. Why am I saying that, Pastor? Why are you saying that? I'll tell you exactly why I say that. Because there are people who think that somehow God is to be interpreted as only being around when things are peaceful and calm. No! No! God works in mysterious ways. His wonders to perform. You know how he rides upon the waves and his footsteps upon the storms. Jesus walks on the water in the midst of the storm, and he tells his people to trust him and be at peace. Be at peace. Be at peace. This storm is not against you, it's for you, and it's for my glory. I need you to trust me and walk with me, and I'm going to show you some marvelous things. Are you hearing me? Oh, all this trouble means the Lord's not around. No! The Lord's always around. Will you trust him? Will you stay the course? Am I boring you? No. Peter tried to get out the boat. Remember that? I have to talk about that a little bit. He thought this was a good time for him to prove to everybody that he really had faith. You know what he did? He got out the boat. He asked the Lord, could I come? The Lord said, come on, I can use you as a good example of a knucklehead who wants to try to do the work without the church. So he let Peter walk on water, a couple feet. And then the storms and the waves, which were boisterous, rose up. And Peter realized how weak he was. You know, you can be in the body and you can think that somehow you're stronger than you really are. And then you know what God will do? He'll let you out. Just let you hang out there. And the storms of life and the troubles of life and the toils of life will cause you to take your eyes off Christ. You think you're looking at him, but you're not really looking at him. You got your eyes straight forward, but your mind and your heart are toiling under the weight of the presence of the storm. Am I telling the truth? And then you begin to sink. Peter began to sink, didn't he? What good was it for him to be on the water, sinking, when all the other disciples were in the boat watching? You know what I call this? I call this look at me faith. You can write this down, fellas. This is good. It's called look at me faith. It's called look at me. Now all the disciples are looking at him when he should have been in the boat with the disciples looking at Christ. See, Christ didn't stumble. He didn't fall. He didn't sink. He let the man sink until he cried out as if he was never saved in his life. You know what he said? Lord, save me. And he'll bring you to that point. You who are obstinate and think that you can walk autonomously apart from the body, apart from the church, apart from the saints, apart from his word, apart from fellowship, apart from instruction, apart from leadership, he'll let you sink. And you'll think you're lost. And if God's merciful, he'll break your pride and cause you to cry out, Lord, save me. And when you do, he will. But as long as you don't, you'll sink. I'll tell you how the lesson went, and then I'll go back into my text, because I might not see you again. The Lord Jesus reached down and picked Peter up. Immediately, the text says they were in the boat. And you know what? The boat made it to land, just as God told them to cross the lake. But he didn't mean for them to cross the lake with the 11 in it and Peter outside of it. He meant for everybody to cross together. Is anybody, does anybody hear what I'm saying? I only need one witness. If the rest of you want to climb out the boat and find out for yourself, you can do it. Okay, all right. I just needed to get this across. Let us go build together with you. Here's the next point. Near Jordan. Near Jordan. This characterizes the content of our ministry. This characterizes the content of our message. This describes the sum and substance of what we do. We build near Jericho because Jericho is where the miracle takes place. Jericho is where God does wonders. Jericho is where God does marvelous things.